Welcome aboard Just Jets with your captain, Matt O'Leary. Buckle up and enjoy the ride.
Hello and welcome to Just Jets episode number 61. What's going on? I am Matt O'Leary here with you, and we have a lot to get into in today's episode. We have the fallout from the Sam Darnold trade to get into, your reactions in the voicemails. We have NFL draft this month, so we will do the Jets' biggest needs coming into the NFL draft and so much more. But before we get started, the NFL draft season is upon us. It's possible that you might have Trevor Lawrence's haircut in your pants. No good. We don't like that. That's why our partners at Manscaped, the leaders in below the waist grooming, have partnered with us to make sure you don't have to gamble on shaving your balls like you do on the NFL. So with my promo code JETS20, you can get 20% off and free shipping. That's right, 20% off and free shipping on top of that with any of their products. Got the Lawnmower 3.0, the cologne that I always talk about, and of course the Weed Whacker, and so much more. So check it out over at manscaped.com and get yourself something nice. So with that, let's jump into today's episode number 61. And we had the Sam Darnold trade, which we knew it was coming. It came the day, of course, as I released the podcast last week, so it's old news at this point, but we'll get your reactions in the voicemails and stuff like that. And what I wanted to focus on today was what I look to be at the Jets' 5 biggest needs heading into the draft. So some honorable mentions before we get into what I think the top 5 are. These are positions that I think the Jets should take swings at in the draft as well, but I just don't know if they're as pressing as some of the other needs, and that is edge, running back, tight end, and wide receiver. Those 4 positions. So let's talk about running back. I expect the Jets to grab a mid-round running back to get with Ty Smith and, of course, Tevin Coleman, who they just brought in. So I think running back is definitely something the Jets will take in the mid-rounds. Wide receiver, just always good to grab more depth. Their wide receiver core is pretty solid as is, so I don't think they're going to take one super high in this draft. You have Corey Davis, who you paid a good chunk of money to. Denzel Mims should be taking a step forward. They brought in Keelan Cole from the Jaguars, who I like a lot, and Jamison Crowder is still on the roster, one of the better slots. So those are 4 pretty solid receivers, and then maybe you could add one in the mid-rounds to put as wide receiver number 5. I would say that's probably pretty fair. Edge. The Jets did a lot to bring in a couple of depth guys like Vinny Curry, and you have Bryce Huff, who's a depth guy already, and then they went out and paid Carl Lawson. So I don't think the Jets need to spend a premium asset on that position anymore, just because of all the stuff that they've been able to do in free agency at it, and it's a position of need. So I definitely think that maybe you can grab one maybe grab in the later rounds, but I don't think it's something that you need to do at 23 or 34, which wasn't really necessarily the case just a month ago. And what was the other one I mentioned? Oh my God, tight end. There we go, tight end. So I like Chris Herndon. I think he could be good, and you brought in Tyler Koff to be more of a blocker, but having another receiving threat is probably a good idea. In my mock draft yesterday, that I put out, I had the Jets taking a tight end in the 6th round who has some upside. So maybe the Jets decide to go that route. So those are some of my honorable mentions. So let's get into what I think the big needs are. So coming in, the biggest need right now is quarterback, because right now James Morgan is your quarterback 1, and that's only going to be for a couple more weeks here. But quarterback is going to be selected at number 2. More than likely, it's going to be Zach Wilson, probably upwards of 90% it's going to be Zach Wilson. Justin Fields, I think, is worthy of a top 2 pick. I think he should go in the top 5. It's going to be crazy if San Francisco decides to take Mac Jones over him. But right now it looks like all signs are pointing to the Jets grabbing Zach Wilson at number 2, which I like. He's my QB2 in this draft. And I think it would be a home run kind of a pick from Joe Douglas. And he's getting his guy to align with Robert Saleh, himself, and the Jets offense all building together. So quarterback is definitely going to be the pick at number 2. More than likely, it's going to be Zach Wilson. Slimmer of hope or slimmer chance, depending on how you look at it and who you want, that it's somebody other than Zach Wilson. But to me, I think that's a very good pick at number 2 overall, and something that Jets fans could be excited about. He could throw on the run. He has the deep ball, the accuracy on the deep ball, which is impressive. And the arm angles, which is just super, super fun to watch him throw from all different kinds of angles. Yes, people are going to bring up the competition. Yes, some people are going to bring up the injuries from 2 years ago. It's a little bit of a concern, of course, but there are zero perfect prospects in the NFL draft, but he is a very, very good one. So I expect him to be the pick at number 2. Another need, and probably the second most important need behind quarterback, is offensive line. Right now, you have left tackle figured out for the long term. You have a pretty good, not great, but pretty good center in Connor McGovern, and you have a pretty good right tackle. The guard positions are not great, so I expect the Jets to go heavy on the interior. They could take someone like Creed Humphrey and have him play center and move McGovern over to guard, and that helps things out. Maybe you cross your fingers and pray that Elijah Vera Tucker falls to 23. Wyatt Davis, I fully expect them to address offensive line early, either at pick 23 or 34, I think is going to be where the Jets look, because they still probably need 2 starting guards, and whether that is, again, sliding Connor McGovern over to one of those positions or just addressing it in the draft, I think adding to this offensive line has to be a priority for Joe Douglas. So O-line is right there at number 2. Number 3 is a starting caliber outside corner. You look at this team right now, they have Bryce Hall, who I'm high on and I like a lot, but you need more than just Bryce Hall on the outside. You need a guy who can be a number 1, which they don't have. So I definitely I know a lot of people are going to say, oh my God, you draft your quarterback in 2 and you might as well just go all offense after that. Well, yes, you do have to grab offensive linemen and weapons for him. I agree, but you don't have that luxury of passing on not grabbing a corner. You desperately need an outside corner. So that's my third need for this Jets team. Right behind that is slot corner. The Jets don't have one. Like Javelin Guidry, I guess, is their slot corner right now, and he played a handful of games. For whatever reason, they refused to bring in Poole. They decided not to go and bring in one of the San Francisco cornerbacks. For now, we know that could possibly change as this goes on. Maybe if they decide to, sign a guy like Richard Sherman, then they could wait on drafting an outside cornerback and maybe double up on offensive line and then grab, a slot corner in like round 2 or 3, like Elijah Molden, someone like that. But right as it stands right now, how the roster is, outside corner and slot corner are still very much so a need. And you also need linebacker help. Outside of CJ Mosley, this is not a very deep linebacker team. And like after this year, CJ Mosley is most likely gone. So they desperately need some development there. You can't have any faith or trust in a guy like Blake Cashman who can't stay on the field. He's a sneeze away from landing on injured reserve again. They need more at linebacker. So while it's not a sexy position and not something that I would like to take in the first 2 rounds, if you want to grab a Monty Rice from Georgia in round 4, sure. If you want to grab someone like that and, a mid-round guy, rounds 3, 4, 5, that's when I would start looking at linebacker. And to me, those are big needs on the defense. And with Robert Saleh, he is a defensive-minded coach, so he's going to want his defensive guys as well as offense. I just think this draft has to be balanced. So many people are going to say, oh, this has to be so offensive-heavy, which I agree. You do have to do your due diligence on the offensive side of the ball and maybe prioritize some key positions on the offensive side of the ball. But you can't just say, hey, I don't really care about slot corner or outside corner in today's NFL and expect to have any kind of success. It's just that's how the game is played. You need a good slot corner, and the Jets have had one in Poole, but I don't know why they won't bring him back. And on the outside right now, it's going to be Poole and, not Poole. It's going to be Hall and Bless on Austin. I think you need more than that to get by. So if Greg Newsome's sitting there for you at 23, you tell me you don't take him? I would. I think I would. He's a perfect fit in this scheme. He's a physical player, athletic player that seems to be right up the alley of both Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas. I wouldn't be surprised if they go corner that early. To me, that's the big need. So quarterback, O-line, outside corner, slot corner, linebacker, with a little bit of a step down from those needs. Running back, tight end, wide receiver, and edge. Those are really the positions that I expect the New York Jets to attack in the NFL draft, and that's where I think Joe Douglas decides to go. So with that in mind, keep that in the back of your head, and let's get into some of these voicemails and reactions from the Sam Darnold trade up into the draft and all kinds of stuff. Charlie in Wisconsin is up first, and he wants to talk about George Fant and the offensive line.
Hey, Matt. I realized it's Charlie from Wisconsin. I realized last time I called it was Easter, and the New York Jew and me forgot that meant we probably already recorded the show. But anyway,
True.
I had a really weird hot take, but I think it could actually work. So let's talk about George Fant. So even though he's played a long time, he's still pretty raw. He didn't play. I don't think he played football even in college until like his last year. So he doesn't have very much experience. He was the swing tackle in Seattle for 5 years, so he didn't play too many snaps.
Right.
So because he's so raw, to me, one advantage of that is that he could potentially switch positions. So what if the Jets on draft day 23 go out and draft Kevin Jenkins and then cut Alex Lewis and slide George Fant all the way to left guard to have best 5 out there? What would you think of that?
Okay. It's intriguing. I don't know if it's the route that I would necessarily go. I think Jenkins is pretty solid. Maybe they do. And I think that George Fant is athletic enough to make a move like that and have some success, and he still has some pretty good size. I like Fant at tackle. I do. I know he's not a long-term solution, but if he's here, he got a 3-year deal, so if he's here for next year and the year after on top of that, I'm okay with it. I think he's good. To me, if you want to go offensive tackle, I would look to grab one a little bit later and have them as a developmental guy to maybe take over in a year or two. I really like Fant at right tackle. I think my plan would be to draft Humphrey and move McGovern, or find a way to get Wyatt Davis or another guard. Maybe a guy like Leatherwood could move inside with his size. So there's a few ways that Joe Douglas can go. That's definitely one of them. I don't know if it's my favorite route, but it is definitely an interesting thought with Fant, who, as you mentioned, is kind of an athletic freak and can do a little bit of everything. So it wouldn't shock me if that ended up happening, but I don't know if it's my preferred option. Thank you, Charlie, for checking in. Let's get to James in New Jersey, and he's got some reaction to the Sam Darnold trade.
Matty-O.
Yo.
It's your boy James from New Jersey. What's going on? It's been a while. So, of course, you're probably going to get a million voicemails about the Sam Darnold trade reaction. So this is one of the millions that you probably heard. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it was bound to happen. Obviously, most people speculated that it was going to happen the night of the draft, or day two of the draft, but it happened 25 days before. Now, with that being said, I have a question and I have a reaction. Actually, a question. Anyway, here we go. So, I think you remember when I first time called in for you, I asked you, will we be upset if Sam Darnold rips it up against the Jets if we play him to the team that we traded? Well, guess what, Matty-O? He got traded to Carolina, and we play Carolina this year. So, I kind of hope, we'll see what happens, but, you know, I feel something's going to happen that's not going to go to Jets. We'll see what happens. So, do you think he will rip it up with us, against us, now that he's a Carolina Panther, if he potentially becomes a quarterback? Second part question, do you think that Sam Darnold, if of course he becomes the starting quarterback for the Carolina Panthers, do you think Sam Darnold can thrive in a Joe Brady offense? Because Joe Brady is an up-and-coming offensive coordinator, and it seems like Joe Brady kind of got Joe Burrow to where he's at in the NFL from being at LSU. I think Joe Brady can help Sam Darnold and fix him and be the talent that he is. So let me know what you think. Thank you for listening. I hope you get this. And as always, go Jets. Thank you, Matt.
Really appreciate you checking in there, James. I think he has a chance to be. Ooh, that was my phone. I think he has a chance to be solid in Carolina, but I don't think it's going to be anything more than like a middle of the pack quarterback. And what I mean by that is maybe he turns into like Jimmy G, Jared Goff, Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, someone like a quarterback in that range. I don't think he has that top 10 like prospect anymore that we originally thought coming out, and that he flashed a little bit in his rookie year. I just think at this point in his career, expecting him to be this massive outlier is a huge stretch. He's going to have to do something that pretty much no one did. And people are going to go to Ryan Tannehill and say that, oh, he had success. But, I mean, if we're just being honest here, Ryan Tannehill was better early on in his career than what we've seen from Sam Darnold. And I know the situations are different. I understand it. There was so much to go on with Sam Darnold in his first 3 years here with the Jets. But I wouldn't be really worried about that. I think Joe Douglas made the right call in deciding to move on and get his guy. And it didn't work here. And I feel bad that it didn't work here. And I was high on the kid. I don't know if he's going to have this massive resurgence where he's a top 10 quarterback in the league. Can he be average to slightly below average? Probably. He could be an okay starter, maybe. But I don't think he's going to be this elite player. And with the Jets picking at 2, you have a chance to reset the clock and get a prospect who can be an elite level player, which what you need to have success in this league. So hopefully that answers your question, James. We have Travis in Ohio up next, and he has some reaction to the Darnold trade as well.
Hey, Matt.
Yo.
Travis from Ohio.
What's up, buddy?
Hey, buddy. I was way wrong on my call-in last week about Sam Darnold when I thought the market had dried up, was worth keeping him, and not picking him as fifth-year option. Carolina Panthers are still in the market. You were correct that you can't keep both him and the quarterback we take at number 2 and Sam, but actually Carolina picked up his fifth-year option.
Yep.
So I was wrong again. And I suck. You know who doesn't suck, though?
Who?
Again, Broadway Joe Douglas. Proved me right again because I praise him because he got way more than we thought, just like the Jamal Adams trade. People in GMs aren't going to trade it with him anymore because he just fleeces them like the original gangsta he is. Anyway, we still have acquired no former Colts defensive backs or overpaid for somebody over 30 or a running back. So again, love Joe Douglas' offseason and glad the quarterback debate is finally over for all our remaining sanity.
Yes.
Which is very little.
Very little, agree.
But anyway, I wish Sam and everybody but the Patriots, Dolphish, and the Bills and their fans nothing but happiness. Love ya. Go Jets. Bye.
Thank you so much, Travis. Always appreciate hearing from you. And I think you hit it, man. Joe Douglas has had a really good offseason. Was it perfect? No, it's very rare that you have a perfect offseason, but we have to see what he does in the NFL draft before we can completely grade his offseason. In my eyes, that's kind of what I was saying all along. I think I can understand some people were frustrated with free agency. I think it was fine. There were areas where maybe he could have did things a little bit differently, but I will say this. I was surprised that he was able to get 3 picks for Sam Darnold. The 2nd, 4th, and 6th, well, the 6th is this year, the 2nd and the 4th is next year. Those 3 picks added up is like a middle of the first round. So value-wise, he did a solid job with Sam. It's not the same kind of shock level that I had with the Jamal Adams trade, but it is a really good haul for a quarterback who's struggled early in his career. So I think you could say that it's a good trade for both sides. Carolina's taking a shot, not dumping a ton of money in there to him. And clearly Matt Rule really likes Sam Darnold. That seems to be obvious there. So thanks, Travis. Let's get to Lucas up next. He's in New Jersey, and he wants to talk about trading back, not with the number 2 pick, but with 23.
Hi, I'm Lucas from New Jersey. Calling in to talk about something I'm surprised not many people have talked about. A trade down, but not from 2 because, well, by Sam. Looks like we're getting Zach Wilson, which I don't seem Sam, but is what it is. Go Zach Wilson. But a trade down from number 23, and obviously this would be a draft day move because you rarely see, move ups from anything outside the top 10 until draft day. But I'm looking at the board, and I saw New Orleans at 28, and right at 24 behind the Jets is Pittsburgh. And I was thinking, what if Pittsburgh, would pull what Green Bay did last year and take their future QB to sit behind Big Ben, and New Orleans is eyeing a QB and they're worried about that, and they trade with the Jets, or just simple. There's a position in need for another team behind 23 there, and they trade up and get it. And honestly, if there's still a good amount of corners and interior linemen, 23, it has to be a corner or interior lineman. But if there's still a good amount of them left at 23 and Douglas is comfortable sitting on his hands a couple more picks, why not? And you get another second rounder or maybe a third rounder, and you're looking at even higher draft capital, which, you could go out and get another receiver or a tight end with that later pick. And, I just thought that was an interesting idea. And unless, at 23, the interior linemen and corners are slim, then you got to stay there and pick it. But, just an idea I thought that was interesting. Not many people were talking about. So, yeah, go Jets. And I know you're an Islanders fan, so I'm going to say this. Let's go Rangers. And go Yankees.
And Yankees too? That's funny. I like that, Lucas. That was good. Depending on how the board breaks, I wouldn't be shocked. I think you bring up a lot of really good points there. And it's all kind of contingent on what happens on draft night. So you're 100% right. There's no way this happens before the night of. But let's say, as you said, one of those teams, like maybe Pittsburgh wants to move up and make sure to grab, I don't know, like you said, their quarterback or maybe an offensive lineman, I was going to say, but I don't know if that makes sense because the Jets could be in a spot for an offensive lineman. But the Saints, maybe the Chiefs, pretty much any team after them, I wouldn't be opposed to it. And like you said, you could just continue to grab more capital, which is what Joe Douglas seems to like to do to begin with. So, yeah, I mean, I really can't say one way or the other right now because I don't know what the board looks like at 23 or when the Jets are making the trade. But would it shock me if Joe Douglas tried to do that? Absolutely not. While I don't think 23 is the one that I would do, I wouldn't be surprised if it was 34, which is essentially the same kind of thing there because 34 is basically a first. If I were to put money on it, I think I would go with 34 being moved, but it could be 23 because they're so close together. So one way or the other, I think there's a good chance one of those gets moved. But I really like that idea a lot, Lucas. I think you bring up a lot of good points. Mikey from New Jersey is up next, and he wants to talk about this Sam Darnold narrative. What narrative? Let's hear from Mikey.
Hey, Matt, it's Mikey from Jersey calling. I know you probably don't want to talk about this, but I'm getting so fed up with this narrative around what Sam Darnold inherited with the New York Jets. Sam Darnold was the third overall pick in the 2018 draft. He was highly touted as the best quarterback coming out of that draft class. What did he show us in the 3 years he was with the Jets? He couldn't stay healthy. He couldn't win games. He couldn't win games. He couldn't stop turnovers, and he couldn't elevate his teammates. So all I'm hearing is this narrative that, the Jets failed him. They didn't surround him with playmakers. They didn't surround him with this. They didn't surround him with that. Why couldn't Sam Darnold, the third overall pick, elevate anyone? He couldn't elevate his receivers. He couldn't elevate the running game by spreading the ball around. He couldn't even throw the ball downfield. Even if he had a marquee receiver, he couldn't get him the ball. This man couldn't throw the ball more than 30 yards accurately, and we as Jets fans are supposed to feel bad for him, saying that we didn't surround him with good talent. He is the third overall pick, and he could not elevate a single person on this team. He's a great guy, but I'm just so sick of this narrative that we failed him. Possibly, he might have failed us too. Sorry for the rant. I'm just getting sick of this narrative floating around about the Jets. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Have a good day.
Thanks, Mikey. I don't know if that's necessarily fair, though. I think you could say that it went both ways, which I believe that's true. I think you could absolutely say that the Jets didn't do enough to put Sam Darnold in a position to succeed, while also saying that Sam Darnold didn't do enough to elevate guys around him. I think both of those things can be true. And in a vacuum, you're right. He didn't help himself. He was also held back in a lot of ways, too. And I don't think it's fair to kill him on that at this point. Look, it sucks that it didn't work out. He should have been better himself. The Jets should have did a much better job. Realistically, this came to a crashing end when Adam Gase was the hire, and things continued to get worse. Once Adam Gase was hired, and years and years and years of bad drafting with Mike McCagnon, who was somehow gift wrapped this job, which I don't quite understand. And he won Executive of the Year one year. Ironic. But you're right. Sam Darnold didn't do enough. But at the same time, like, we can't say that he was put in a good situation. Like, I don't think if the Jets drafted Josh Allen, I don't think he is the player that he is right now. I think there's a chance he could have been a bigger bust than Sam Darnold, because from a talent perspective coming into the league, you can make the case that Sam Darnold was more talented and a better overall prospect than Josh Allen, but Allen was put in a really great situation. And granted, he did take the steps necessary, but there's so many factors that go into it. I don't think you just put it all on the player. I don't think that's fair. Vinny in Peekskill, New York is up next. Wants to talk about the Jets situation now. This is a good segue, actually. Jets situation now versus what the situation was like when Sam Darnold was the pick.
Hey, Matt, it's Vinny from Peekskill.
What's up?
I'm obviously calling you less than 24 hours after the Darnold trade. And as you and I have predicted and felt, this was the direction the Jets were going. And it's for the right reasons. Now, I mean, we got all the Darnold fanboys doom and gloom. And, you know, they'll get it out of their system by the time the draft comes. But I just want to dispel any fears of anyone about the Jets screwing this up again. Well, we don't know what will happen in the future. What we do know for sure is that the Jets are certainly in a far better position than when they drafted Sam Darnold in 2018. They're far better organization-wise. They're far better coaching-wise, and they're far better roster-wise. And the last but not least, they're far better resource-wise in terms of this year and in the future when it comes to draft picks. Because in the end of the day, the biggest thing that ruined Sam Darnold was not the coaching, in my opinion. I think it was just the inability of the Jets to build around him. And that was because we had to trade up to get him, and we didn't have those second-round picks that probably would have done a lot more for the Jets than just trading them. And that's all, you know, and go Jets.
Yeah, thank you, Vinny, for checking in. You bring up a very good point, because the Jets did have to give up picks in order to go up and get Sam Darnold, because they won too many games with Josh McCown in 2017. What a disaster. And because of that, it was hurt. I mean, you weren't able to properly build around him. They also took Nathan Shepard, an interior defensive lineman from a D2 school who was like 25 years old when he was drafted, with the next pick after that. Like, so many bizarre decisions were made in the last, beyond the last 3 years, but specifically from the moment Sam Darnold was drafted onward, very bizarre decisions from the Jets organization. So now it seems like they are in a much better situation because they're not having to trade up. And on top of that, like, Joe Douglas is a much more trustworthy general manager, and Robert Saleh, there's no way he could be worse than Adam Gase. I know he hasn't coached a game yet in the NFL, but he is so much more respected, and his staff is so much significantly better than what the Jets were dealing with in the last 2 years. So you're right. It's already a better situation just because of that. Let's go to Paul up next. He is calling from West Virginia. He wants to talk Zach Wilson.
Hey, Matt. My name's Paul. I'm from West Virginia. I'm a long-time listener and second-time caller. But I just listened to the Joe Douglas press conference, and I've been saying it for a while, ever since we won the game against the Rams and missed out on Trevor Lawrence. I did my deep digging, and I am 100% backing that they are going to be drafting Zach Wilson. 100%. You look at the press conference, you got Joe Douglas smiling. He basically confirmed the report about Steve Young, and he can't give a straight denial that he didn't recruit the family. So I want to, I'm excited. It's the quarterback I want. But I was wondering what your grades for the Jets coaching staff are, top to bottom, because I don't want us to ruin this prospect. And I was wondering if this coaching staff would be the coaching staff to maybe get it done and get us back to the promised land for the first time in 50-plus years, it seems like. Anyway, Matt, go Jets, and hope to get the answer. Bye.
Yeah, I agree with you that it definitely seems that the New York Jets are going to draft Zach Wilson, which I'm obviously okay with. I've been talking a lot about Zach Wilson pretty much since, November of last year, or late November, early December. It doesn't matter. The point is, this has been the conversation for a while here. As far as it goes with the Jets, like I just think we talked about it, but the infrastructure is so much better because they have the draft assets in order to build around their young quarterback. And while Robert Saleh is a defensive coach, he brought Mike LaFleur with him, who has had success in this league and has been around guys like Kyle Shanahan for a long time at this point. His brother has had success, and the offense in San Francisco and Tennessee, where his brother was, and Green Bay, where his brother is now, has had success. It's not, Dowell Loggins, who wouldn't be in the NFL if it wasn't for Adam Gase. It's not Jeremy Bates, who they found on the side of Mount Kilimanjaro. They have like legitimate coaches in here on the offensive side of the ball and the draft capital to continue to build around him. So I think it's a much, much better situation that Wilson's going to be coming into versus what Sam Darnold was coming into. And I do think that he has the tools to be that guy, to be a franchise quarterback. So we'll obviously see. There's no guarantees in any of this, but it's hard for me to sit here and say that I'm not excited about what the Jets' future holds, because couldn't be further from their truth right now. Nick from Atlanta is up next, and he wants to talk about Joe Douglas.
Hey, Matt, it's Nick from Atlanta.
Yep.
So I just kind of wanted to hop on here and talk about Joe Douglas and the job he's done. So obviously, if you're evaluating a general manager, the top two things the general manager does is pick a quarterback and pick a coach and, the resulting staff, scouting department, those kind of things. Obviously, we can't evaluate Joe Douglas on that yet. He has yet to do that. Of course, we got, Saleh and, most likely Zach Wilson coming to the building, so we can evaluate that in a few years. But can we talk about the job he's done with trading and drafting? I mean, what if I told you before the season, okay, the Jets are going to go 2-14, and Sam Darnold's going to have a significantly worse statistical season than Gardner Minshew playing for Doug Marrone and the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he's going to have a much better statistical season. Look at the QBR, look at all the stats, and Joe Douglas is going to turn around and trade him for a second, fourth, and a sixth. I mean, that's insane.
It is.
This guy knows how to work the trade market. Because, yes, is it a little bit nerve-wracking trading Darnold just because you think, what if we made the wrong choice? Think about this, though. Whenever I listen to, all the, the Colin Cowherds, the Stephen A. Smiths of the world, the public experts, they're all oh, look at the Jets, they're terrible, they're just going to ruin Wilson, too. I mean, think about this. Think about this. Whenever they talk about it and they say, okay, if the Panthers, they made out great. Oh, my God, they got a quarterback. And you know what the first two things they always say? He was drafted 3rd overall, and he's 23 years old. That has nothing to do with what he's actually done. Now, of course, I know he's unknown, but that's exactly the point. You got a second-round pick for an unknown quarterback who's 23. I mean, hell, I'm an unknown quarterback, and I'm 22. I mean, that doesn't exactly make me worth a second-round pick. And listen, I understand. Sam Darnold's got talent. I'm not saying that.
That's
funny. But can we just talk about getting 2 firsts for a safety and a second-round pick for Darnold and a 4th and a 6th? I mean, that's pretty good. I don't know. This guy knows how to work the trade market. He is really, really effective at it. Anyway, soon we'll be trading 4 players instead of trading them away. I really think this guy will know how to work the trade market when we start building this thing. Anyway, I think you do a great job with this show.
Thank you.
Give me your thoughts on that. All right, bye.
I agree with you 100%. I was blown away by legitimately stunned with the Jamal Adams trade. I was pleasantly surprised with the Sam Darnold return. And one you didn't mention too, but it is, I think, also worth mentioning, Leonard Williams. You got a 3rd and a 5th for Leonard Williams, who walked. And yeah, I mean, he put up good numbers this past year with the Giants, and they gave him a massive contract. But I mean, he's been a really streaky player. And you just drafted Quinnen Williams, so you knew the Jets weren't going to pay him. So you were able to get a 3rd and a 5th on that as well. He's done a really good job. And I like the hire at the head coach. I like the staff that they've built. It all depends on what they do to build around their next young quarterback. But I agree with you, man. The value that he's got on these trades are really impressive. Now, he's got to start using these draft assets and drafting players to come in here and succeed. But on the surface of what he did in order to get these assets is really, really good. So hopefully he comes through and has another draft class like he did last year, because there was a lot to be excited about on the 2020 draft class, and maybe we'll be saying the same thing. Hopefully we will. about the 2021 and 2022 draft class, and there's no reason to believe that this 2022 Jets team, not this year, but the following year, can't be a competitive team with the 21 picks they have over the next 2 years. Just, there's no reason to say that. Ben in Jersey is up next. He wants to talk about Sam Darnold's trade value and what the Jets were able to get.
What's up, Matt? It's Ben from Jersey. So, obviously, I'm calling on Wednesday. 2 days ago, the big trade has been made. Sam Darnold has been sent to the Carolina Panthers for a 2021 sixth-round pick, a 2022 second-round pick, and a 2022 fourth-round pick. Now, I've seen a lot of people complain about the value, like, why didn't we get a second-round pick this year? This isn't good value. Well, they're wrong. Considering that a lot of analysts, just like a few days before the trade happened, said they wouldn't even give up a third-round pick for Sam Darnold, this is great value. Getting 3 draft picks for the guy who was the 32nd ranked quarterback, that's a win in my book. Even though we didn't get a pick out of it this year, or at least higher draft
Yeah, it was
pick.
a sixth.
Now this begs the question. Now this shows that we are definitely drafting a quarterback. I don't buy Joe Douglas says he's going to keep his options open at pick 2. There's no way he trades out of pick 2. If he trades out of pick 2, I have no idea what to say.
We riot.
He's going to either take Zach Wilson or Justin Fields, and they will be the ones. One of them will be the one to try to quarterback this team back to football relevance.
Yeah.
And obviously, I wish all the best for Sam. We played the Panthers this year. I hope I hope this defense makes him see ghosts. That's all I'm saying. Overall, I hope he does well in Carolina. I know this is not the place where you want him to go because he'd be reunited with Robbie, and Matt Rule could have been the coach of the Jets in 2019, but obviously he is now the Panthers coach. So I know it hurts for you, but I still think we won the trade. And all I have to say is that this Panthers-Jets game better be a nationally televised game. This game better be Sunday Night Football. That's all I have to say regarding the trade. Let me know what you think about the trade. Did we win the trade? Did the Panthers win the trade? Let me know what you think, and as always, go Jets.
Yeah, I think that it leans more towards the Jets. I don't hate the trade from the Panthers side. They didn't give up a premium asset this year, only the 6th, and then the 2nd and 4th next year. But from the Jets side of things, I think it was a good return. I really do. I don't think they're going to play on Sunday night. When was the last time the Jets played on Sunday Night Football? I don't even know. Thursday night, maybe. Maybe they'll play on Thursday Night Football or a Monday night game. I think the Jets did a really good job. I think Joe Douglas did a really good job, and this team is set up to be completely different looking after the draft this year where you have a ton of picks, and after the year after where you have 2 firsts and 2 seconds and 2 fourths, right? Yes. This year you have 2 firsts, 2 thirds. Next year you have 2 firsts, 2 seconds, 2 fourths. This team could look very, very different in a short amount of time. So I love it. Absolutely love it. Jeremy is up next. We got another voicemail on Darnold reaction.
Hey, Matt, it's Jeremy from Sacramento again. Hey, I just wanted to react to your video about Sam Darnold. Hey, I love the kid. I think he's a great kid, great person, great character. I don't want to ever beat up on him because he's such a good person. But just being honest as a player, I agree with everything he said. There was absolutely nothing to set him up to be successful. At the same time, I do want to point out that I think you probably agree with this. I don't think, no matter what, I don't think he was going to ever be a great player. I think he has a chance to become a good player or good enough quarterback that with the right pieces around him, a team that could win, kind of like Steve in San Francisco, Garoppolo or whatever. Like the possibility of winning if you have a good enough team around you and doing enough to win. Yeah, I think so. But Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers, or Mahomes, obviously you're probably laughing. No,
right.
Like if he was ever going to be at that level, like a true guy that you pick with a number 2 pick, like total works out superstar, he's going to look better and make the team better, no matter, even without the coaching and a bad team around him, right? I mean, because any of those guys, those great players, you're going to see greatness in them, even if they don't have the supporting cast, even if like Deshaun Watson wasting away in Houston right now. But one of my points is, I mean, this last year when Joe Flacco came in, I didn't feel we were any less competitive as a team. Like I didn't feel, we can't win because we don't have Sam Darnold, we have Joe Flacco, and that's not a very big endorsement for Sam as a player when you don't feel a drop off from Joe Flacco, a guy who's like way past his prime. And you're talking about a number 2 pick in the draft overall. So I agree the Jets did not pick him up, did not set him up to be successful. I agree that he could be a good quarterback in the right situation, like good enough to give a team that's not built for a quarterback to carry them, but really to just be good enough. I don't think Carolina's going to be very good, which makes me very excited about our second pick. I think the second round pick next year that we got from them is going to be a top 40 pick. I really do. I don't think Carolina's going to be very good next year. I think it's going to end up being a great trade for us in just that we're going to get a top 40 pick out of it. And I want to definitely hear your opinion of that and your reaction to what I'm saying about Joe Flacco and not being any worse when he was starting. Take care.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary that when Joe Flacco came in, Joe Flacco was better than Sam Darnold this year. It wasn't, oh man, it's going back and we got to deal with Joe Flacco. He was the better quarterback, which is sad. It's really sad what happened to Sam. It is. It's not fair. It stinks. All those things can be true, but at the same time, like they were able to get the ball down the field so much more with Joe Flacco, which Darnold couldn't get the ball down the field. He just couldn't. And part of it's because mechanics went away. He was never really great at the deep ball to begin with, but just so much started to go wrong with him at the tail end of year 2 into year 3. And just, it had to be done. The Band-Aid had to come off. And you're right. There's a very good chance the Jets get a top 40 pick out of it, which would be insane. I mean, next year, let's say, I don't know, it's we'll just use 40 as the landmark for where the Panthers pick's going to be. Where do we think the Jets finish next year? Maybe 15th pick in the first round? And Seattle, maybe 25? So if you tell me you have pick 15, 25, 40, and like, a couple of picks after that? You're going to have 4 top 50 picks? Not bad. Really not bad at all. I can get behind that. I really could. So, yeah, it stinks that Joe Flacco was playing better in 2020 than Sam Darnold, but I think that tells you the reason why it was time to move on as well. Matt in Tennessee is next, and he wants to talk about picks 23 and 34 and what the plan should be.
Hey, Matt. This is Matt from Knoxville, Tennessee. I wanted to call about our pick 23 and 34, and I guess I'm just getting a little, I don't want to say irritated, but I don't understand, people screaming for a corner or an edge rusher at 23 or 34, or some people have, corner at 23 and then edge at 34. I just kind of wanted to bring this up because since 2002, we've had 21 first-round picks. We've used 6 of those 21 picks in the first round on offense. 2 of those were quarterbacks. So we've had 4 first-round picks since 2002 that have been used to surround your quarterback with offensive talent to help him succeed. Okay, so 4 out of the 21 since 2003. And if this is the most important position in all of sports at quarterback, and we still have people wanting to use our premium draft assets on defense at this point, it doesn't make sense to me. And it's just kind of frustrating that we sit here and scratch our heads on why we haven't had a good quarterback since Chad Pennington. And we're surrounding our new quarterbacks with offensive talent in round 3 and 4 instead of 1 and 2. So I can live with losing on defense for the next year or 2. I'm fine with that. We can fix that later as far as I'm concerned. Draft him in round 3 or whatever and kind of switch it. But I can't sit through watching Zach Wilson or Justin Fields or whoever we draft struggle after what we see or after what we've just done to Sam Darnold. So I don't know how people are screaming for defense at 23 and stuff like that. So as far as I'm concerned, I like the people who are taking guard at 23 and 34. or even at 34, I don't even care what position it is. I just want it on offense. I know wide receiver isn't the biggest need. I'm not a big fan of running back that high. I don't think we need tight end that bad. But as far as I'm concerned, if we can get like Kadarius Toney or somebody to shore up that receiving core a little bit more, or another guard at 34, I'd be perfectly happy with that. We just need to surround our new quarterback with talent from day one, especially after, what happened to Joe Burrow last year with that bad offensive line. If our quarterback tears his ACL, Greg Newsome, are we going to be happy with that draft pick when Zach Wilson's getting hit 20 times a game? So I don't know. Just let me know what you think about that. I'm curious if anybody else has noticed how many times he's taken defense since the early 2000s. So thanks for your show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate the check-in. I agree with the overall sentiment for the most part, but we're leaving some context out a little bit. On some of those misses, they've got an interior defensive line, which is a low position of value. Now, I don't think anyone who says they want a defensive player at 23 or 34 is saying that they want another interior defensive lineman or a linebacker. Like, we're talking about a starting cornerback. The Jets need a starting quarterback. I don't think you could say, we'll find a starting quarterback in round 3. That's not really fair to have a round 3 player have to come in and be effectively a number 1 or number 2 corner on this team. The only way you can sell me on it being both on offense is if you go guard, or guard center with Creed Humphrey. Fine. Okay. That'd be great. But to sit here and say like, the Jets, they don't need to spend a high-end pick on a corner, I think is a massive mistake. And you kind of answered your own question at the end there. Running back, like, this team's not taking a running back at pick 23 or 34. No way, with the amount of needs they have. Tight ends don't really need to with Chris Herndon, and maybe you can find one later, and you have Tyler Kroft. And wide receiver, okay, great. You take Kadarius Toney at 23. Where is he going to play? Because you already have Corey Davis, who you just paid a significant chunk of change to come and play here. Denzel Mims, who we feel good about. Jamison Crowder, who is a very good slot receiver. And Keelan Cole. So he's coming in to be a 4th or a 5th receiver. You're going to spend a 1st-round pick on a 4th or a 5th receiver? I wouldn't. I would take Nico Collins in the 3rd round and maybe have a 4th or a 5th receiver as him. And then when Jamison Crowder walks after this upcoming year, then you elevate him to a top 3 receiver in that sort of a way. But you kind of answered your own question. Unless you're going to offensive linemen at 23 and 34, which I'm okay with, then you have to mix corner in. That's too big of a need. They don't have a starting outside corner, and they don't have a starting slot corner as we speak right now. I'm not talking about safety. I'm not talking about linebacker. I'm not talking about interior defensive lineman. I'm not even talking about edge. But corner is a different story. That's not, just some other defense position. It's a passing league, like you kind of say by talking about Zach Wilson. So you need corners to stop that, and edge, and a pass rush. And the Jets have a good pass rush now, because you have you just paid out money out the wazoo to bring in Lawson, who I love. Vinny Curry you brought in for depth, which I also love. John Franklin Myers, Quinnen Williams, Sheldon Rankins you brought in, Fadukasi, Kyle Phillips. Like, there are guys in the front who can get after the quarterback for sure, but they don't have any corners. They need a corner. So while I understand wanting to lean more offense when drafting a rookie, which I agree with, I think you need to add to this offense. I'm not saying you draft your rookie and then go all defense after that. That's not what I'm saying. I just think that if you're going to take a offensive lineman at 23, which I'm okay with, then okay, 34, you probably need to take a corner. And if you're not taking corner, then you probably need to take another offensive lineman. 23 and 34 should either be an offensive lineman or a corner. That's it for both of those. That's honestly where I'm at right now. Last one, Matt in New Jersey wants to talk 2022 needs. Interesting. Let's hear from Matt.
Hey, Matt. It's Matt from New Jersey. So I just got a question for you about next year. So what do you think our biggest need will be in the 2022 season? So not this future season, the one after that. Personally, I think it might be linebacker. I don't have a lot of faith in CJ Mosley because he's getting up there in age. So I like taking linebacker with the 3rd round pick, where we go quarterback and then corner and edge, or not edge, guard. And then in the third round, we take someone like Jabril Cox. So, just let me know what you think the biggest need will be in the 2022 season, and then someone that we might be able to take somewhere in the draft to try and fight against that. So that's it. Have a good one. Go Jets.
I like it. Linebacker's probably on my list, as was your list. So Monty Rice in the mid rounds is someone that I've come to like just because of his speed. I think is really exciting. Corner could potentially be a need depending on what happens in the draft this year, / if they just bring in like a Richard Sherman as a stopgap kind of a thing. Offensive line hopefully isn't, but there's a chance that it could be. And potentially tight end depending on what happens with Chris Herndon this year. I don't think the Jets are going to spend early on a tight end in this draft, but like those are the positions that I look at right now and say I can see that becoming a need in 2022. Hopefully quarterback isn't. Hopefully running back isn't. Wide receiver should not be. Edge shouldn't be, or just interior defensive line shouldn't be. Safety maybe if Marcus May ends up walking, then maybe safety creeps in a little bit. But to me, linebacker jumps out. And for the reason that you said, because CJ Mosley should come in and play this year. But after that, I don't know, not so much. So let me know what you think about this episode and everything. Please make sure to subscribe if you are new, whether you get it on YouTube or in podcast form. Really appreciate the love and support. So give a thumbs up, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Really appreciate it. For now, I'm Matt O'Leary, and I will talk to you next time.